So, one important piece of addiction recovery is to aggressively move your life chips around. So, replacing your addiction with something more healthy, right? And in order to do that, you actually have to explore life and find something that's going to give you joy, that's going to give you the dopamine, and it's probably not going to give you as much as whatever you're addicted to. So whether that be drugs or sex or love or whatever. But this is the whole idea of finding life in your life, right? Instead of defaulting to your weakness, your addiction, and also constantly cementing that in your brain so that's all you want, stretching that, rewiring yourself by finding other things in life that bring you joy. So a lot of addicts, when they stop using whatever they're addicted to, they start exploring. And I think it's hard to do, but this is part of their treatment. They start exploring other things in their life, and this is why a lot of addicts find fitness. And I think you have to be careful because if you have the addictive gene, and I believe I have it as well, you can become obsessed, right? Then fitness can become the new addiction. So you got to be careful about that. But usually you are exploring other things in life that's going to bring you joy. And here's the thing. I think in a way we're all addicts. I think in a way, if you grow up in this world, in our society, in our culture, we're all addicted to a certain extent. We're all addicted to food, things, shopping, sex, love. If you grew up in any kind of area where you can see a billboard or a magazine or have access to the internet, then you have been brainwashed to a certain extent. So we all have these addictions, and I think it's important to stretch. I think it's important to try to find things that requires you to discover, and most people don't want to do this. It's uncomfortable, it's unfamiliar. Like if you go to an ice cream store and your favorite ice cream is chocolate chip or mint chip, and they're like, you could have everything else but that, you're probably going to walk out, right? Because that's your go-to, that's what you like. To actually try sorbet goes against the grain, and you don't feel like it. But I think that's part of treatment. I think that's what stretches us. So in your life, think about what you're addicted to, even if it's not a real addiction, meaning, it doesn't take control of your life, but what is your default? What do you naturally do? And it doesn't mean that you have to remove that or take that away. That's great. You have that already, but what else can you do that's going to give you a different type of joy? What else can you do that's going to, and this is where, a lot of mindfulness comes in. This is where you can exercise your curiosity muscle. This is where you can stretch as far as being open. A lot of us live very closed and narrow, and so we're always doing the same things. When I was a screenwriter, I was obsessed with writing, and a lot of times for the wrong reasons. And so I was a workaholic, and that's all I did. My addiction was 13 hours of punching keys, and I had no life. And one of the things I tell my clients, especially love addicts who are obsessed, who only do well they don't do well, but who only are in relationships, and it's very hard for them to be alone, my prescription is to get a life, and I didn't have one because I just wrote for 13 hours a day. Didn't spend any, I didn't invest in my time in friendships. I didn't do other things. I didn't have passions. I didn't have hobbies. And so my life was very narrow. It was very cut and dry, and I was miserable. So it doesn't mean to not be ambitious, right? I believe you do have to get obsessed with things that you want to build, that's just the way it is. So if you want to be really good at something, yes, it requires a lot of time and obsession. You have to lose yourself, but here's the thing, you also have to have the ability to come back, and I think that's what makes something healthy and unhealthy is a lot of addicts, they lose themselves. They don't have the ability to come back, right? They don't have the ability to put it down. They don't have the ability to use it, not abuse it. So whatever that addiction is, love, sex, drugs, food, exercise, whatever. I think that a balanced life, and I don't like the word balance because life is not meant to be balanced, right? It's not like the poster in elementary school with the 4 food groups, and you got to have your amount of vegetables and your meats and whatever. I don't see life that way. I see life as more of kind of like an equalizer, and you get to play around with your bass and your treble, and until it sounds right to you. And that sound, that pitch can change as you grow and you change. But I don't know. Me at 47 now, yes, I have a lot of obsessions. I have addiction in my blood. My dad was an alcoholic. My go-to, my weakness would be food and sex. But I also know that I have to find joy in other things, and that requires an exploration, that requires a stretch, that requires courage, that requires being open, that requires forcing yourself to try something different instead of the mint and chip, right? Which is all you eat, or that's the only flavor that you get. My question to you this morning on a lovely Sunday is, what does it look like for you to stretch? What does it look like for you to replace your go-to, your default, your flavor with something else, right? And what would that look like? Does that mean you're going to pick up the guitar? Does that mean you're going to travel? Does that mean you're going to pick up a new hobby? Are you going to start a podcast? What's the fire in your belly that doesn't take you down the same path, right? Especially if you are addicted to something, especially if you're addicted. So if you're addicted to love, can you be alone, right? Can you do things that are uncomfortable that doesn't require someone else? Can you start building a life that's not dependent on someone else? If you're addicted to food, can you do other things than obsess about food? Can you spend your time and energy on doing other things, on creating other things, building other things? If you're addicted to drugs, obviously, instead of using, can you fill that time with other things like exercise, or, I don't know, traveling, or getting on a bicycle, or riding a motorcycle, or whatever it is, right? Picking up a hobby. If you're addicted to sex, can you think about something else? Can your obsession be not that, but something new and different? And I think by doing so, this is what stretches you. This is what creates life. And this is what I mean by get a life. I think that we all, especially now with the virus, it's such a great time to start moving our life chips to practice the act of discovering, not live with what ifs anymore, explore, put action behind your curiosity. And I think all of that is a form of self-help. I think all of that is how you connect back to self.